Let's welcome our next guest who just recently passed the CPA exam.
Hi guys, my name is John Eichelberger. I work at Onisco and Shoals in Long Beach, and I'm part of the CalCPA YEP Comittee. Today I'm going to be sharing with you tips and a little bit about how I passed the CPA exam.
How did you study for the CPA exam in general?
Overall, coming up with a strategy to pass the CPA exam, that was the most important part. It's a 4-part test, and each one takes about 6 to maybe 12 weeks of study depending on how you want to split up the hours. But my plan was to take FAR, which is the hardest one, and then BEC, which is maybe, for me it was tough, so I did those two first, and after that I took audit and reg. But for each test I probably studied the most for FAR, and I had to really plan out my timing schedule. So FAR I did about 3 months of study, and then BEC was closer to 2.5 months, and audit and reg were about 2 to 2.5 months as well. So I had to really just lay down a timeline. Putting down a timeline and then committing to hours that you want to study is the most important part.
How do you study for multiple choice questions?
So multiple choice, the way that I went about studying was I wanted to focus more on what I didn't know. So I would read the whole book first, and I studied using Becker, so shout out to Becker. And I read the whole book first, and then I would go through and do all the multiple choice questions just to kind of reinforce what I was learning. And I didn't spend any time on simulations, maybe 5% if I really needed it. But as I went through multiple choice, if I got an 80% to an 85%, I felt pretty comfortable moving on and going to the next section. And it took a lot of time just to kind of reread if I didn't understand, or to make sure that I solidified my knowledge, and I would go back and rework multiple choice if I had to.
How do you study for simulation questions?
Simulations, actually, they went all right during the exam. I think those were the parts that I scored the lowest. However, knowing enough about the multiple choice, I was able to kind of work my way through just using my knowledge that I had and work through the simulations. I also had work experience, so there's a lot of memos, a lot of documents you have to sort through when you do a simulation question. And having the work experience is really what drove me to understand how to really focus on what I needed and throw away the stuff I didn't need when it came to getting through the simulations efficiently, and knowing what I should just, if I didn't know, just go on to the next thing and kind of use my time the best that I could to get to the end of the exam.
How do you take study notes?
My way of taking notes is I will write the notes down, however, I never go back and reread them. And some people are completely different, but I just write chicken scratch, and I don't really care about reading it in like the next week, the next month, whatever. I do it once till I understand it, and then I move on to the next thing. And I brought with me today, just to show you, I take notes on computer paper. There's no notes on this, but what I'll do is I'll make like a knowledge tree, or maybe like a pyramid, to kind of understand the concepts, how things are linked. And that's like my method of taking notes. Once I understand it, then I kind of just move on to the next thing. And if I need to reread something, I will, or if I need to just kind of redo the notes to understand it, I will, but I never look back on my notes. That's my way of studying. So, I mean, the most important thing is finding your own study style, but for me personally, that was what works.
Which material did you study first for the CPA exam?
So I didn't use note cards. I used textbook first. As I read my textbook, I would keep a piece of paper, so I would read, write down some notes that I had, and then after that, I would go on, do the multiple choice. It didn't matter what I scored on the multiple choice. I would go on to the next section, read, then do the notes, and then go on just like rinse, repeat, until the very end. Like after I'd got through the book, I'd find my weak points, and those were the ones that I'd go and just like dig down deeper before the test.
What was the most difficult section for you?
I would say it was either FAR or BEC. it was the first two that I got out of the way. FAR has the most meat in it. It's gonna take the most time to study. BEC, I was never good with internal controls or the COSO, and even cost accounting. It was a little bit harder for me to grasp in the beginning, but I just really had to just spend a lot of time learning that in order to get it right.
How long did it take you to finish the CPA exam?
With taking all 4 sections, it took me 1 year from the first date I took my first test to the last date I took my last test. So I took my first test September 6th, 2018, and that was FAR. So I studied the most time leading up to FAR, on and off for about a year, but then like really 3 months, was like hardcore, just me studying right before that test. And then the next test that I took was BEC, and that was in November of 2018, so another couple months after that. And then I took, I want to say audit next. Audit I took in May of 2019, and then my last test was, what are these, 4 of them? Regulation. So I took regulation on September 7th of 2019.
How did you stay focused and maintain the drive and self-discipline to pass this exam?
So staying focused was hard. Naturally, I tend to get distracted either by people, by things, like I want to know what else is going on. And for me personally, I would make studying fun by inviting friends to come study with me. I would go to people's houses, they'd go over to mine. We'd go to, different coffee shops, boba shops. I kind of made studying an outing, and it was a way to both see my friends and go out. And also, like my friends are all smart, so like they help me, I help them, and we kind of build each other up and have something to do or to look forward to when growing through the CPA exam process. So it helps to know other people that are around you and shooting for the same goal, because you all push each other to do better. Okay, so some ways to stay motivated are to make studying fun. That's the ultimate goal, is to make it, your pride and joy. You want to have no other hobbies except for studying. And I know that I'm kind of being a little bit sarcastic, but in a way, you're spending your whole, if it's 6 months, if it's a year, if it's a year and a half or 2 years, however long you're taking to spend to study for those tests, you want it to still be as pleasurable and as fun as possible. So go to the park, study at a park bench, go to maybe a coffee shop, sit outside. You can go to a library. If they open up after coronavirus now, who knows if that's actually going to be a thing. But, maybe go to your friend's house. Make it either a social thing, if it's want to be social, make it an outing to go try a coffee or a boba or a drink. Make it something that you do along with your normal life, so that you're able to enjoy, the process. And maybe it's watching YouTube videos. You could calm down on a Friday night and watch another YouTube video, or watch Roger, on the YouTube channels, because they'll teach you a lot about accounting.
How did you manage the study time?
Plan first the big steps. The 4 big steps are, there's FAR, BEC, Reg, and Audit. So you have to plan the timeline that you want all 4 of those tests to be in. You want to take those 4 tests in 6 months because you're not working and you just got out of school. You want to take them in 1 year because you are working and you need some more extra time to study in between breaks. So first lay out, what are those 4 milestones, which is each test and when you want to take it. Then, from your first test that you're taking, you want to set up a plan for that first test. So plans, like for me, for example, FAR was, I studied kind of on and off here and there for about like a year, just kind of wasting my time. And then the 3 months before the test was where I just buckled down, and every single day my plan was to just go every single day, study, and it was maybe 1 hour or maybe it was 4 hours. It was how I felt. That was how I studied, using my studying style. So I planned that, did that. I took FAR, And then after that, my next milestone was BEC. So I just repeated the process for BEC, repeat, and that was how you get all 4 of them done, kind of using your milestones and using your mini plan to meet each milestone.
What did you do a day before the exam?
Nothing. So, okay, the day before the exam, I would highly recommend not overstudying. I would study maybe between 1 to 3 hours the day before the exam. Any more than that is just too much, and I would say you should have done all your studying before then. That way you have everything, and when it comes to the day before exam, you just want to have a clear mind. You want to have good sleep or good rest and go in confidently and well rested. That way you can think critically during. It's a 4-hour test, so you want to make sure that you're on your highest performance level when you're taking it.
And what advice would you like to share?
So I would say my first tip is to take things one step at a time, and think of it maybe like as stairs as you go through the process. You can't get to the top of the stairs by skipping steps. So you got to make sure that, you build your base slowly and gradually, and make sure that you're understanding as you go along and conceptualizing things. Take time to just kind of reflect. And I think my second tip would to be, if you're tired and you're not retaining information, just stop studying. If you need to stop studying for a day, stop studying for a day, stop studying for 2 days, take a little bit of time off, refresh, and then when you're feeling really good and your brain is functioning very well, study as much as you can. So use that time to be your most efficient, and to really, if your plan was to stop studying at 8, but you're feeling like you're in a great mood, don't stop studying. Keep going till 9 or 10 o'clock. And then, make sure that you're using all of those good hours where you're retaining the information to your advantage. Third tip is just grind it out. Make sure that you have 100% certainty that you want your CPA license before you even go to get it. Because if you don't want it, it's going to waste your time. It's going to take longer. But if you really want it, you're going to do all you can to get it. So when I say grind it out, make sure that and it's something you want, that you're willing to work hard towards. But yeah, just make sure that you're grinding it and you're keeping the momentum as you're going forward. Don't slack.